It was supposed to be an easy babysitting job on Hemlock Lane. Good money, quiet night, nothing strange. But when the baby monitor started showing what should have been impossible, the real horror began. Turn off the lights and listen. This true horror tale. If you enjoyed chilling tales like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. More nightmares are waiting. The phone's shrill ring was an act of violence in the sanctity of my Friday night ritual. It was 8:45 p.m. The tub of Belgian chocolate ice cream was softening perfectly on the coffee table, and the opening credits of my true crime documentary were rolling, promising tales of faraway terrors that were, crucially, not my own. I almost let it go to voicemail, a phantom limb twitch urging me to preserve my small, cherished island of solitude. But on the fourth ring, a habit of ingrained politeness, or perhaps a darker, more curious instinct, made me snatch the receiver. The voice on the other end was a breathless, frayed wire of sound. Mrs. Davidson. I'd never spoken to her, only knew the name as belonging to one of the new sprawling houses on Hemlock Lane, the ones built with more ambition than charm. "Hello? Please, I need a sitter. It's an emergency." Her words tumbled out, tripping over each other. "My regular girl. She canceled. Said she was ill, but—" She trailed off, leaving a silence that felt heavier than her words. "I'll pay double. No, triple. Just please, can you come now?" Triple. The number hung in the air, a shimmering, tangible thing. It wasn't just money. It was a month's worth of worries silenced, a buffer against the slow, creeping dread of my bank account. Hemlock Lane was a different world, a place of manicured lawns and silent, judging cars. I'd always felt a vague disdain for its sterile perfection, but now that disdain was quickly being monetized. I hesitated, but only for a second. The documentary presenter's grave voice intoned in the background, narrating some forgotten tragedy. My own life felt so small, so beige in comparison. Maybe a little real-world unease was a fair trade. "All right," I said, the word feeling foreign in my mouth. "I'll be there." The drive to Hemlock Lane felt like crossing into a different dimension. The familiar, slightly shabby streets of my neighborhood gave way to wider, darker roads, where the ancient oaks seemed to loom judgmentally over the newly laid tarmac. The Davidson house wasn't just a house, it was a statement, a monstrosity of glass and sharp-angled gables that stabbed at the twilight sky. It was less a home and more a fortress of windows, each one a dark, vacant eye staring out into the gathering night. In the purple dusk, it didn't look welcoming, it looked hungry. I parked my dented hatchback at the curb, feeling its rust spots like badges of poverty under the house's silent scrutiny. The walk to the front door was too long, the crunch of my shoes on the imported gravel obscenely loud in the suffocating quiet. Before I could even raise my hand to the bell, the heavy oak door swung inward as if the house itself had been watching me approach. And there stood Mrs. Davidson, a wisp of a woman swallowed by the cavernous foyer behind her. She was pale, not like porcelain, but like something kept away from the sun. Her hands fluttered around the collar of her coat, a frantic bird-like motion that never stilled. Her eyes were a washed-out blue, darted over my shoulder, past me, anywhere but directly at me. "Thank you for coming. It's just Leo. He's 10 months old." She said his name with a strange emphasis, a blend of love and something else, something that sounded an awful lot like fear. "He's been fussy, a difficult teether, but he's finally asleep. You mustn't, under any circumstances, go into his room." The finality in her tone was a physical thing, a wall erected between me and the second floor. A chill, unrelated to the evening air, traced a path down my spine. "What if he cries?" I asked, the standard question feeling foolish and inadequate. Her fluttering hand stilled for a moment, gripping the door handle. It was ornate, cold wrought iron shaped into thorny vines. "He won't," she said, and the certainty in her voice was more terrifying than any uncertainty could be. "Just don't go in. There's a baby monitor on the kitchen worktop. Watch that. Nothing else. We'll be back by midnight." And then, with a rustle of expensive fabric, she was gone, slipping out into the night and leaving me standing alone in the yawning mouth of the foyer. The door clicked shut with the sound like a final seal. The air was oppressively warm and thick, smelling overwhelmingly of lavender air freshener, a cloying sweetness that failed to mask the underlying scent of something else, something metallic and faintly sour, like old meat or forgotten milk. It was the smell of a secret, and I was now trapped inside it. I found the baby monitor on the marble kitchen worktop. It was an old, clunky model with a black and white video screen, the kind you'd find in a charity shop. The camera was pointed directly into a crib where a small blanket-swaddled lump lay perfectly still. I poured a glass of water, the silence pressing in on me, broken only by the hum of the massive American-style fridge. That's when I noticed the first rule, typed on a crisp index card and taped to its tour. "The monitor is your only window. Trust it." I chuckled nervously. Weird, but all right. Rich people. An hour passed. I scrolled through my phone, the glow of the screen my only companion. Then a soft thud came from upstairs. I froze, my eyes snapping to the monitor. The lump in the crib hadn't moved. Another thud, heavier this time, like something being dragged. "Don't go into his room," Mrs. Davidson's warning echoed in my head. I gripped the monitor tighter. The screen showed a peaceful, sleeping baby. Nothing amiss. But the noises continued. A low, gurgling coo, the kind a happy baby makes. It was coming from the hallway right outside the kitchen. My blood ran cold. I looked at the monitor. The baby was in his crib, upstairs. The cooing turned into a wet, rhythmic clicking like a tongue against the roof of the mouth. It was just beyond the doorway, in the dark hall. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly on the tile floor. The clicking stopped. Heart hammering against my ribs, I crept to the kitchen doorway and peered into the darkness. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I returned to my seat, my hands trembling. That's when I saw the second index card, tucked under the salt cellar. I was sure it hadn't been there before. "If you hear him outside the room, do not acknowledge him. He is still in his crib." A cold dread began to coil in my stomach. This wasn't a quirky rich family thing. This was wrong. I stared at the monitor, a lifeline to reality. The baby, Leo, lay still. Then a tiny hand fluttered up from the swaddle. It patted the air, and then, with impossible clarity for the grainy video, I saw it wave directly at the camera. A high, tinkling laugh echoed from the living room. My head swiveled. The monitor showed the baby, silent and still in his crib. The laugh came again, closer now, right from the other side of the kitchen island. I could hear the soft, quick patter of crawling. I squeezed my eyes shut, repeating Mrs. Davidson's words in my head. "Don't acknowledge him. He is still in his crib." Something cold and small brushed against my ankle. I yelped, jerking my leg up. The monitor slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. The screen flickered. When I snatched it up, the video feed was different. The angle was wrong. It was no longer a view from a wall-mounted camera. It was a low-angle view, as if the monitor itself were on the floor. And in the crib, the swaddled lump was gone. The blankets lay flat and empty. A tiny, freezing hand closed around my thumb. I looked down slowly. He was pale, with eyes the color of old milk. He wasn't 10 months old. He was maybe 3 years old, naked, and his skin was cold as a corpse. He smiled, a wide, gummy smile that showed far too many needle-like teeth. "Peekaboo," he whispered, his voice the rustle of dry leaves. I screamed and scrambled backward, kicking out, my chair toppling over. He scuttled away, moving with a spider-like quickness into the dark living room, his laughter trailing behind him like a poisonous ribbon. The monitor in my hand buzzed. The feed was back to normal, the camera on the wall. The crib was still empty. A new line of text scrolled across the bottom of the screen, as if typed by an unseen hand. "Now he knows you can see him. Run." I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted for the front door, my fingers fumbling for the deadbolt. It was locked. The key was gone. I rattled the handle, sobbing, throwing my shoulder against the solid wood. From the top of the grand staircase, I heard a soft, sing-song voice. "Sitters here." I looked up. He was standing there, at the top of the stairs. But he was different. Taller, thinner. His limbs were too long, his head lolling to one side. His milky eyes were fixed on me. "Stay and play," he crooned, his voice deepening, becoming a grotesque imitation of an adult's. I turned and fled into the kitchen, locking the flimsy door behind me. My phone had no service. The landline on the wall was dead. I was trapped. Thump, thump, thump. Something heavy was coming down the stairs. It wasn't the quick, light patter of a child. It was the slow, deliberate tread of something much, much heavier. The kitchen door handle began to jiggle. Then it stopped. Silence. I held my breath, pressing my back against the cupboards. Maybe it was over. Maybe it had gone away. A soft scratching sound started at the base of the door. Then a single, perfect white envelope slid soundlessly across the polished floor and came to a stop at my feet. With a trembling hand, I picked it up. It was crisp and expensive. My name was written on the front in elegant, looping cursive. Inside was a note and a stack of banknotes, triple the promised rate. The note read, "Thank you for staying until midnight. You were a great help. He gets so lonely. We'll be home soon to relieve you. P.S. Please don't be in the kitchen when we arrive. He doesn't like to share his playthings." I looked at the clock on the microwave. It was 11:59 p.m. From the other side of the kitchen door, I heard the distinct, wet sound of a mouth smiling in the dark and the gentle, insistent turn of the knob. The next day, I sat in my bedsit, thinking about that child. That boy wasn't a few months old. He was several years old. Why had his mother lied? Was he some sort of special child? I didn't have the courage to ask again, nor did I go back to babysit when they called again. In fact, I stopped going to anyone's house for babysitting altogether. A strange fear had taken root in my heart. That boy is still in my mind. It was the most horrible event of my life. I've left that city now. It's been quite some time, but I still remember that boy every time I see a child. Horrible memory. Such terrifying experiences have a profound effect on a person's life. I hope you are now able to cope with the situation and that positive influences are coming into your life. If you would like to talk about this event or need any other help, I am here.